Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Sue. So, if we have about a dozen participants, and I can't see them unfortunately,
Okay.
but we can start in about 2 to 3 minutes. But while they join in, I will, just quickly introduce you to this context, to give some context of this. I know that you've had conversations with Mike. I also shared with you the deck. So three of the team out of six, there are six startups in total. Three of them are from inside of growing. These are the intrapreneurs, and then three are extra. They are entrepreneurs. So we have a very good mix. It's a very interesting mix of folks who are going to be listening in to you, and we are all early stage, which means we are just about starting to go to customers, reaching out to them, and so we would it will be good to know how the market should be approached in early stages. So that's where probably we could focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. That would be great. Would it be helpful just to give a quick background on me?
On
People?
on each team? You mean?
No. Just on my background.
Yeah. So I will invite you to introduce yourself, and then we can in fact you can get started with a pitch, so to say, for 10 maybe 15 minutes or whatever.
Okay.
Or if you have a slide deck, we can go through the slide deck and keep it open for discussion. So the way we have been holding these calls, and we found that model quite good, is if teams ask questions during by slightly interrupting the conversation, but that we found has been a quite a meaningful discussion. So we'll try that, but if you're okay with it.
Yep, I am happy to do whatever works for the folks there.
Okay. So why don't we start off? Vikshuk, how many team members are here on the web? Can you just tell me?
Yeah, it's about 12, 13.
Okay, so I think we are in good shape. Pretty much everyone would have joined. That's the number we have. So over to you, Sue.
Alrighty, I will have to get the ball at some point too, if that's okay. Okay, so my background, just for the folks on the phone, I am leading marketing for Horizon X at Boeing at the moment. I joined the team about a month ago now, I guess. But prior to that, I've been with Boeing for about 17 years. Before I joined Boeing, I managed a marketing advertising agency in Australia where we had a whole range of B2B, B2C clients. I had an undergraduate in psychology and a postgraduate from Australia, a master's in business marketing and international business marketing. Since I moved to the US in about 2003, I've worked in all areas of Boeing. So I've been in BCA, I've been up at corporate, I've been in the defence business. So I've had broad exposure across the Boeing business. Since I've moved over to the US, I actually came over originally to teach marketing at the Boeing Leadership Center, which is like our corporate university. And since then, I've been in a number of marketing / strategy / business kind of roles. And then when I came over to the US, I also got an MBA from Kellogg at Northwest. So that's kind of a brief background on me.
Right. So this is Sanjay. I just have a quick question. So since you come from Australia, can we have some conversation about cricket as well? I mean, I missed that. I never missed.
Absolutely. Not that I have to say in a very un-Australian way, I am not a huge cricket fan, but I'm happy to talk about it.
So that was just a quick segue. Sure, I mean, it's great to know. I mean, Kellogg's is the the place for learning marketing. So I'm sure you have a lot to share with us about about how we can take our businesses out and communicate with our audiences.
Yeah, and way more than I can share in an hour. But if anybody wants to tag up with me again later or have further conversations, also happy to do that too.
Excellent. And we have your contact.
Awesome. I'm just trying to work out how to share my screen. Can you pass presenter mode to me at all? Because it's not coming up as an option for me at the moment.
Oh, really? That is a problem. Can you, because see, unfortunately, where I am at T-Hub, from where we run the accelerator, and today the internet connectivity here is very, very bad, and I'm barely able to get into the call, so I don't have access to WebEx itself. Maybe one possibility is if you can send it to, is it, no one can host it, then is it? Is there some way I can...
Sanjay, I will just try from my side because you have shared the host key. So I'll just try if I can join as a host and then maybe I can pass. I'll just try.
That would be phenomenal.
Yeah, you need my Ben side which I also don't have right now.
Okay, well, while we're, if we can get up the slides, that would be awesome because I do have some interesting kind of content to share, but I can certainly talk about, just talk to it in the meantime, if that makes sense, so we don't waste time.
Let's get started.
Okay, so I guess the kind of first thing I wanted to talk about was to,
I just passed the presenter over to you.
I've got it. Fantastic. Look at you. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Phenomenal. Thank you. That's going to make my life much easier. Okay. If everybody can let me know when they can see this, that would be awesome.
Yes, it's visible.
You got the slides there?
Yes, so it's visible to me as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do was level set on what marketing is, because a lot of people, when they hear the term marketing, they can think a whole range of different things, from what marketing really is to sales to advertising and even having golf with people, playing golf with people. So just to level set what marketing is, Philip Kotler, who is kind of the guru in marketing, he says marketing is the science and art of exploring, creating and delivering value to satisfy the needs of a target market at a profit. And the last part is obviously pretty key to start. The American Marketing Association says it's the activity set of institutions, processes for creating, communicating, delivering and exchanging offerings that have value for customers, clients, partners and society at large. So what many people are familiar with, people who have studied marketing at any time will be familiar with the 4 Ps, which is product, price, place and promotion. There are models out there which have extended that now. There's models for services, but this is kind of still basically fundamentally sound. So in terms of marketing, when you're looking at a market or looking to having a new product and going into a market, you have to make sure that you have all of these elements down lying flat before you go out to the market. And not only that, you have to do this for every segment that you're focused on. So for example, I was looking at some of your companies, and I'm obviously, I've kind of got a set sentence on each, so I'm not sure that I've got the right context. But for example, in Javier, is that pronounced correctly? the drone data workflow. If you're doing drone data workflow for construction, you might find that residential versus commercial versus government construction versus private construction, they all may have very, very different customer needs. And if that's the case, you really need to look at these in terms of each of these elements to make sure that you have your product and your messaging targeted to that particular customer group. Please feel free to jump in at any time. One of the things that I found really helpful in terms of explaining what marketing is and working through the process is actually this chart, which is by CEB, and it's as it says there, it's an anatomy of a world-class B2B marketing organisation. Now, you all seem to be B2B, so you might find this applicable. I know that's really hard to read, so I have got a larger version of it here. And if you can see this, I was told by Michael that you guys are already up to kind of 7. You've got your market assessments, you've done your competitive positioning, you've got your customer data and insights, you've already done your customer segmentation, which is critical to know which market segments you're going after. You've done your purchase path mapping, so you know how the customer acquires and who the stakeholders or gatekeepers are throughout the purchase cycle of what you're doing, who the users are, and hopefully understand the messaging that resonates with each of those stages in the purchasing path and the use cases. And so you kind of, and I believe you've also done the value proposition development. Is that right? Have you guys all done these first kind of 7 steps?
Yeah. So this is Sanjay on behalf of the entire team. Yes. This work has been done. Quite a lot of due diligence, actually. Although, some of this keeps evolving, but a lot of due diligence has gone into it.
Fantastic. Because I thought because of that, I would focus mainly on the promotional kind of elements, what you need to go out and talk to customers and have ready to do. But I can't stress enough that you can't do that effectively unless you've done this upfront work. Because unless you understand the customer segmentation of your market, unless you understand who the various stakeholders are in the purchasing path and what motivates them, you have to understand exactly how to target your messaging to the right people at the right time with the right information. So if you haven't done this upfront part, any promotion that you put out in the market, any collateral material you produce, any digital strategy that you have is not going to be as effective as it could be. So given that, just keeping going around this kind of path, I'm going to focus mainly, and I can send this chart out to people if it's of use to you. I'm going to focus mainly down here, like on the touch point selection, the integrated marketing plan, and the content marketing kind of areas. Does that sound like it would be of help? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Alrighty. So I think most people kind of realise these days going forward that digital strategy is key. I think that the days of taking advertising, your one-page full-colour ad in a trade publication are kind of dwindling in their effectiveness because you can't measure them, you can't measure how effective they are, you don't know if you're reaching the right target audience, there's a limit in how much information you can put in, there's no way to understand who's looking at it. So really that has been, all of those limitations have been behind the drivers to make digital strategy a key part of any platform that you go out to the market with. Some people I've heard say, digital is more B2C, it's consumers buying things on Amazon. So I just pulled a few stats just to make it very clear that people understand that digital is very much in the B2B space and how important it is. And this kind of stats, and these are all this is from an article from December last year, so very current. It says that B2B customers get more than 70% of the way through the decision-making process before they ever engage with a company. So you think about that if no matter what kind of pricing strategies you're offering or anything else, if you've got customers who are already 70% through the buying cycle before they even reach out to you, it's critical to have that information available when they need it, where they can easily access it, and they're accessing it online. Buyers in all industries are using digital content. 89% of B2B researchers use the internet in their research process. They generally conduct at least 12 searches prior to engaging on a specific brand site. More than half of buyers say they rely on content. 75% say that the winning vendor's content online had a significant impact on their buying decision. So all of this information is pretty pertinent to a startup, whether you're looking for investors or you're looking for new customers. So when you look at what they're relying on to make purchase decisions, there's white papers, webinars, case studies, ebooks, infographics, and blog posts. So obviously that gives you some insight to what kind of content should be readily available in that 70% of time where potential customers are researching the solutions before they will ever reach out and talk to you directly. As they become more sophisticated, they're looking for content that educates and informs. So they're not looking for a high-level sales pitch or a high-pressure sales pitch. They're really looking for information that will make them smarter and that they can share with their peers or management inside a company that makes them look smarter. So if you can work with them on a consultative basis, if you can have materials digitally available to them that enables them to get educated to understand why your offering is the best, how the advantages that your offering brings will help their particular business, then you're going to be way ahead. My kind of position is that we shouldn't make our customer do the work to see how much value our product can bring. We should understand them and understand the specific customers and do that legwork for them.
So this is Sanjay.
Yeah.
I think these, what you just described over the last few minutes is really, really important. I mean, we are all B2B organizations here, and what you are referring to when you say that, either through white papers or through any other means, we propagate knowledge and not really do a sales pitch itself. Are you saying that we position ourselves as something that, someone as an organization that is on the cutting edge of technology or cutting edge of a new business process? Is that how this should be positioned through by giving out these white papers or such collateral which is different from a typical sales pitch?
So I mean, since all of the companies here seem to be, as you say, on the leading edge, then they have I think that they have even a stronger obligation to really help educate and inform people. And that's also going to help them in their positioning as a thought leader in their particular industries. So I would recommend, and again, you have to look at this from your own company, your own experience, and your own market. But as a general rule, I think giving them, putting in the effort and giving them case studies, white papers, examples that can make them smart, because really when you leave the room, the customer that you brief are the ones that are going to have to make that sale internally. So they really need to have a very, very strong understanding of the product, the capabilities, the benefits it will bring to the customer's company, and have confidence in that, because what you want is when you leave the room for them to say, I understand this, it's going to add value, I'm confident in it.
So we have 6 teams here. Guys, do you have any observations or any communication, any comments
Hi,
on
Sanjay.
this particular point? How would you? Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Hi, Sue. Thank you for the introduction so far, and I apologize if my question is going to sound a little juvenile. I come from a very technical background, so not very.
Sure.
Right. So you mentioned how digital content is going to be the primary driver of educating a customer. So through your webinars or your white papers, etc. But you also mentioned that you need to do the legwork and educate the customer on the value proposition of the product. So how do you reconcile those two? Because to me, one seems more of more tailored, customized. So if I have a white paper for say an airline, that wouldn't necessarily apply to a manufacturing company, right? So I'm just having a little difficulty understanding the relation.
Okay, so I think, if you think about the 70% of the 70% of the buying decision is made before the customer interaction actually starts, often in many cases. I think digitally online is where people are doing searches. So somebody is interested in drone data flow. Somebody is interested in fleet AI fleet management. They're going to be googling that and searching it online, trying to get smart, trying to understand, because it's a significant investment that's going to impact their business. So online and available, we should have a well-honed, I'll get into that a little bit later, but a well-honed website that has content that informs and engages. Now, once they contact you, then you want to have the information that would be, a white paper or content that would be specific for them. So, for example, in the AI fleet management, maybe there's a generic case study or generic information or a white paper around how the technology helps airlines in general. But once somebody engages, whether it's Southwest or British Airways, they all have different models and different business models, different schedules, different ways of optimizing their fleets. So once you get there, you should then do the research that's specific to that customer. So you understand what they're doing, what their specific needs are, and you create a specific value proposition for them. And particularly in B2B. In B2C, it's a little broader and it's a little it's a little bit different. But in B2B, if you're looking at making a large sale to a large business customer, we should be going out and doing the effort to help make the internal sale as easy as possible, and that's giving them as much information, as much consulting value as we can. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, that does. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hello, Susan. I'm Chandra from Drone Aggregator team. I have a question actually. So what the B2C idea you're saying, that digital marketing idea, so is this idea same for private company and same for the government company? Do you think that the same way of decision making happens through the private company and the government company, or is there different decision making processes there?
I would, hard to say without knowing the specific customer, but my guess would be they are radically different. Because in a private company, there could be one. If it's a smaller private company, maybe there is one decision maker. Maybe their primary focus is on profit and making money and decreasing costs. Maybe if you go to the government customer, they've got government regulations they're trying to fulfill, they've got multiple stakeholders, they've got people trying to protect their career and not making errors. They've got different types of information that they're gathering, which will have a different value proposition. So again, without knowing the specific customer, it's hard to tell. But in general, I would think that the private segment would be a very different segment to the government ones. At least here in the US and in Australia, I would say that would be definitely the case. I mean, they obviously have a core need from the sounds from the drone aggregator kind of perspective, but the way that they would use the data, the way they'd operate, the way they would make their buying decisions, the motivations involved would probably be fairly different. But again, without looking at the specific customer set, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yes, Susan. Why I asked this question is because, like, I felt that the most of the government companies go through the tender or bid process actually, so they are not cost sensitive, and they are not like many times going through the white paper, webinar, or case study. But whereas if you go for the private company, they are very much cost sensitive. They want to do all kind of a study before selecting the service provider or any company basically. So because we have to approach both of them, and I thought means our approach will be different, but we are quite struggling with the approach, what approach we should take for the government companies actually.
So I would, and again, from a US defense government perspective, often it's about price, it's about an acceptable offer at the lowest price. And in those kind of situations, it's important to get into the customer before the RFP or the bid comes out, because the ideal thing would be to get product specifications or service specifications that are specific to your offering actually in the bid. So if there is a specific capability that you have and the customer perceives that to be really important and they put that in the bid and you've got a clear advantage in that, then that's going to really help you be successful in an RFP environment and also defend against any protests that may happen after that is awarded. Does that help?
Yes, of course, Susan. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. So moving along, well, again, this is back to this kind of education. While emotional stuff tends to do better with the B2C, B2B is all about education. It's that making the customer seem smarter, making them feel secure, making them feeling like they're making the right choice, because B2B is usually a larger investment with more significant consequences if something goes wrong than many B2C kind of offerings. The next thing I would just want to talk about briefly is the importance of knowing your audience. And I'm going to give you a brief example of some work that I've done in the past, which will give you an idea of what I mean and why that's so important in the digital context. A lot of businesses in the past who have relied on print advertising, by its nature, you have to do a very broad kind of approach, because if you're putting an ad in a trade publication or in a newspaper or whatever, you're appealing to a whole lot of different people, and you've got to get information that appeals and engages all of them to try and get them to take the action that you want. Digital is different. In the digital space, it's really important to understand your audience. And this is an example of an analysis that we did of one decision maker on one campaign. Obviously, this one is a fairly high-profile decision maker. It's all publicly available information. It was all pulled off the social media profiles. But you can see here for Deborah Lee James, she's the Secretary of the Air Force. The interesting things here are this section here. We went through and we looked at who she followed from media outlets, because when we're doing our media engagement or putting out press releases or trying to get people to write stories on our products, obviously we want to get the key decision makers capable of seeing that stuff. So these are all the journalists that this particular decision maker follows. The ones that are in red, we went through and looked at all of the stakeholders in the buying cycle process for this particular product. And we worked out that the ones that are in red, the journalists in red, are actually followed by a large number of the individuals that we're trying to reach with specific messages. We also worked out that we also looked at the connections that she has into the other stakeholders that we're trying to reach. We also worked out by studying her and researching her that she tends to retweet stories a lot when she's been quoted in them. So our strategy was to talk to some of these, key journalists and try and encourage them to interview her and get some quotes or some information from her in terms of when they're putting stories together. Because we knew that if one of the journalists she follows writes a story about our offering, quote, or the competition that we're interested in, quotes her in it, then the chances are that she is going to share that. And as you can see from this, she has a very, very active social network. So she has over 53,000 connections on Facebook. She's got over 5,600 followers on Twitter. So she is a pretty key person for us. And the importance of getting that kind of, having that kind of detailed customer understanding and knowing how she's connected is and how to motivate her to potentially share some of our content is this kind of pattern. So again, we had a look at the ecosystem that she is in the centre of. So if she were to comment on a story, if she were to share an article that was favourable to us, this is a network of people who would be seeing that. And you can see there's she is very, very well connected. So that's what I kind of mean by really knowing your key customers and understanding digitally the environment that they work in and the potential value you can derive from getting the right message to her at the right time in a way that she is likely to share it.
So this is Sanjay.
Yeah.
Just a quick, not a question but observation. So similar sources today also are LinkedIn, which are public, and we can access that information without violating any information policies, right?
Yep.
So LinkedIn is known. Twitter, of course, you referred to. Are there any other sources that could be tapped without violating any of these information policies?
Yeah, I think you can. Anything that you can find online. I think. We were looking at LinkedIn. LinkedIn is hard because unless you're directly connected with them, it's very hard to see how many followers that they have. But given, for example, this individual, given her prolific Facebook activity, it's kind of hard to imagine that she hasn't got a very, very strong LinkedIn following. And of course, if you're going into areas where you can do paid, then LinkedIn you can get very, very specific. So you can search on region, on qualification, on where they work, on keywords inside of their profile. So if you're looking for, if you're doing drone aggregation and you know that the people who make those decisions are called drone infrastructure managers or something, you can do a search in a specific area, in a specific region for people who have this qualification, who work for this government or this organisation with this in their title. So again, you can do very, very targeted, very cost-effective paid promotion over and above what I've been talking about here, which is essentially free.
Correct. Got it. So these tools are extremely powerful. So before even we start the first communication, even a cold call, all of this should be done so that you are really knowledgeable about that customer with whom you're going to have a conversation, possibly.
I would think so. It would also be good to understand what they're saying on social media, because often you'll get a pretty good feel for what their priorities are, what they're interested in. I mean, sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on the person. The other thing that you should be doing, it's not just about on social media pushing out what you're doing. It's also looking at what they're saying and engaging with them on their platforms. So if you're targeting a company and they're saying we're leading the way in drone technology and trying to optimize our operations, you could always engage with them and say, oh my gosh, that's so smart. That's exactly what we're doing. We're on the same page. This is the way of the future. So it's such a target-rich environment for this really targeted, really meaningful communication. And the nice thing is there are so many digitally savvy young kids coming out of college now, at least from where I'm standing, getting the resources to be able to leverage this is pretty cost effective and can be a massive return on investment, given the very targeted messaging and the targeted information that you can find just searching the web, not by doing anything underhanded. I mean, this is all of this information is publicly available, so anybody could go out there and find this. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sharing, obviously.
Exactly. All right. Thank you so much.
That's my pleasure. Okay, so on to the next thing. The other thing is to learn from the market, and I use this because it's something that our competitors did. It was back in 2016, so it's a while ago now. But we were watching the market, and when we saw this really influenced what I was doing in the defence business at the time when this happened, and it really shows well how you can amplify your message using digital media. So, for example, if you look over on the left here, James Drew is a journalist who is very who's pretty well known. You can see he has 2,169 followers. So, in a very specific defence market here in the US, he is pretty well known. So he tweeted a story. And it was at the US Army, expect laser weapon development by 2023. And you can see all these tags. He posted that at 12:29 p.m. on the 14th of March. So you can be pretty confident that a lot of people in the US Army were probably paying attention to that tweet, because he's a journalist that they follow. People who were interested in laser weapon development in the customer were probably watching it fairly, would probably look at this. Lockheed Martin, and you can see they did this at 12:30. So it's less than a minute after James Drew sent out his tweet. They sent out a follow-up tweet saying laser weapon systems are changing the way we can operate at the speed of light. And it had a link to their website that had a pretty comprehensive story, background information, case studies and things on it. So the benefits of this is that this tweet went to an awful lot of people. Less than 30 seconds later, Lockheed Martin, which was impressive, came out with an aligned tweet. So everybody who saw this tweet probably saw that tweet. So in less than 60 seconds, Lockheed demonstrated that they were responsive, agile, innovative, industry-leading, and a thought-led leader. So that is really getting, for them in that market and that message, they're getting exceptional exposure just by sending a tweet and leveraging content that they have on their website that the customer is now going to see, and it's going to resonate with them. Isn't that cool? I still think it's cool. Any questions about that? Hey. Yeah. Yes, yes, correct. In fact, the way that they did it, we're presuming, because even getting a tweet done that fast, let alone a prepared website called landing page, to get that out within 30 seconds. What they're doing is, if you can see here, it says it's using using an app called Spreadfast. So what they were probably doing was Spreadfast is an application that allows you to kind of scrape what's happening on the web. So they probably had it programmed so it would say whenever something is tweeted, it has the combination of US Army, laser weapons, maybe development, we want to push out this tweet. Because it's kind of highly unlikely that a human saw that and responded with that in real time. So it's probably been an automated program that they have. Yep. Yep. If you can, yes. So we have Spreadfast in Boeing. We actually don't use it in this way because there is a risk associated with it. So, for example, if there was a tweet that said at US Army laser weapon explodes, killing 500 people, hopefully Lockheed has a program that their content wouldn't launch then. So there are risks in terms of doing it this way. Doing the research that I showed you on our target audience, we actually did that manually. So that content didn't come from any kind of app. It was just someone on my team actually researched the person, looked at their profiles, looked at who was following them. So I would imagine that there are so many apps and capabilities out there now, and ways of tracking sentiment and users and engagement. I'm sure that there are apps that can do much of this. If it was a path that you wanted to go, it's just something you would have to look into, of what app best met the specific objective that you have. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, for sure. For sure. I mean, you could look at, this could just as easily be some industry leader, some research guru. It could be, you can do this around any, and should do this around any key decision makers, any key industry influencers, any of that kind of thing. I just want to make sure I get through. This is kind of an overview of a website thing. I won't go into details, but it's just the importance of having a good website system. So just going on to the essentials, and then we can just have an open discussion. The things that which we've kind of been having, but the things you really need before you go to market, I would say, is a great elevator pitch, so you can easily explain to customers, and a really good test for whether it's good is to get the customer to then explain it back to you. Because again, as I said, while you can be in the room, the real sale happens once you leave the room. The real sale happens when the person who's inside the customer, your contact, is going and selling that to their peers, their management, their users, whoever. So it's really critical you have a good elevator pitch which is easy to explain and compelling. You need to have a strong value proposition, and that's a workshop in itself. But it's really understanding not just what your product does, but how your product adds value to the customer. Maybe in addition to decreasing costs of operation, maybe it's using a particular software will enable them to do more flights because they have more uptime. It may be able to reduce the number of flights that they do because they can get sensor information from multiple sensors on one drone. I mean, again, it depends on the customer and the application, but if you're going into a customer, it's worthwhile to do the work for that customer to understand how it really benefits them and what the value is to them. You want to obviously have a professional brand image and collateral. You want to have a website that houses all this information that will help them in that first 70%, on average, in the buying cycle when they're looking to find content. And you should have as much analytics and metrics coming from that as you can. And that can go anywhere from counting how many page views you get, which isn't really all that helpful, to having things that can identify who's coming to the website, what pages they're looking at, how long they spend there, where do they go after they leave your website. So there's a whole scale of that available. The other thing is the social media, as I was saying, understanding your target audience, the key decision makers, the channels they use, how they interact with other influencers in your market, potentially other customers, how you can best reach them. You want to engage and build relationships with your target audience on their platform. So again, it's not just about putting stuff out on yours. It's also about reaching into their platforms and commenting on their stuff and getting attention on their LinkedIn profiles or their Facebook or their Twitter. And it's about networking. So again, engaging with your target audience where they are, and not forgetting all of those things that the B2B buyers say they rely heavily on. So that's all I kind of had prepared. Any questions, thoughts, specific applications I can try and help with?
Yeah. Hi, Susan. This is Vikshut here from Huvier. My question is around, so just taking our company as a case, we have blogs, white papers, case studies, videos, all of this content online in different platforms. Now, what we are lacking in, and I guess in a lot of ways, understand how important it is to do digital marketing. It's we lack that kind of drive or that interest in doing it ourselves. Is there a way that we, for a startup like us, early stage, just kind of getting traction, what's a good strategy to, possibly outsource something like this? Yeah, are there agencies out there or individuals? What should we be looking out for? And how can they help us with strategy, with execution of this network, marketing, and what can it possibly cost us?
I think the short answer is yes. There are loads of companies out there who will help you with this, who will do this for you. I think most of them, like what I'm recommending to you, will have case studies online, will have information showcasing what they do. It would really be a matter of talking to individual companies and explaining what your situation is, and then asking them to kind of come back to you with a proposal, and hopefully through that process you would find some who would understand your market, understand your technology to a degree, although a good marketing company will be able to absorb that and get up to speed to achieve that fairly fast. So I think the short answer is yes. There are lots of resources out there you can use. I do think there is a lot of value to getting an early career person just out of college who is keen and excited and wants to do this stuff, because in terms of having somebody on board who can really get into the product, really understand what's going on, and create material that you can share and help understands the digital environment and the capabilities, probably given the return on investment, would be a good person to add relatively early. But there certainly are resources. It's just a function of money. But I would say that doing this kind of work is a really good investment up front, because it is so meaningful as you get on new customers to have them be able to see that you're not only have you got a good product, but unless you package it well, unless you present it well, communicate it well to the right things to the right people at the right time, the chances of having a successful company are obviously adversely impacted, because it's not only having a fantastic product that really adds value, it's also getting that information to the right people in the right way, in a way that they will remember and be able to sell internally once you leave the room, whether that's that's understanding your elevator pitch, that's being able to send people to your website as they talk to peers and managers. Hey, go and have a look at the website; it's all there. Obviously with consideration to competitive information and all that kind of thing. But so I think it really is a very critical piece. But again, those first boxes we talked about, understanding the market segmentation, understanding the buying cycle, having the right product, understanding the competitive market, what the differentiators are, all of that stuff has to be done before you do this, because otherwise the communication that you're going out into the market with is not going to be effective.
Perfect. Thank you.
So obviously, I think you need to communicate out as it makes sense. So if the offering is ill-formed, or not ill-formed, if the offering is still being formed, you still need to have a clear, I would imagine, a clear understanding of the market segments that you're going after, a clear understanding of the problems that you're trying to solve, hopefully a pretty good understanding of how the products or services that you're doing help that. So I think, as long as you keep your website updated and as the products evolve, I don't know that there is necessarily a problem there or a conflict there. If we're doing a product, then it's probably best to explain the value proposition and the value it brings to the customer as it is today. And then as you learn more, just as you evolve the product or the service, you evolve the content in your marketing materials. Yes. Yep. And sorry. Again, if you have, if you're looking at positioning yourself as a thought leader, the more strongly you can do that, then as the products become more defined and you're putting those out, you're already going to have an audience and a following who are going, and you're going to have more credibility because you've already established that.
Right. So this is Sanjay. Just a quick thing to point out. There are two companies in this group that are exchange companies, which means they are platforms which bring suppliers and customers something together. So drone aggregator is a good example. And then there is, end of life aircraft. Um, we call it the UL company. So these two are good examples. And here, in these kind of organizations, the challenge is you have two sides. On one side you want to position something, so that they post their services or they post their products on the website. On the other side, you want to position it in such a way that they post their services, their requirements on the other side, and you kind of do the matchmaking and value addition. How do we go to these audiences in a cohesive, manner? It is quite different from going to a single set of customers.
Again, it's kind of hard to. Is there a conflict in the information that you're trying to explain to the two parties? I mean, is there something that you're telling one that you wouldn't want to tell the other?
It may be so, but definitely different information, right? So if you're sourcing parts from retired aircraft and selling it as spares to airlines and MROs, these two are, different entities. Their objectives are different. And so the communication will probably be, targeted as such.
Yeah. Well, they are.
I don't know if Yogesh is on the call, but this is something that Yogesh and Sangeeta are working on. So they may be able to throw some insight on it. But yeah, that is the kind of problem these companies will face, in my view.
Well, again, I think, that kind of goes back to, and I'm going to just pop this up on the screen again, these kind of first things in terms of the customer segmentation, the purchase path mapping, the value proposition. It would be, perhaps it makes sense if both customers know that it's a marketplace, then on the web there is going to be I would imagine, on their website, a section for if you're looking to sell parts, go here. If you're looking to buy parts, go here. And then the messaging is going to be different in each of those parts. But the overarching message is that you are increasing efficiency in the system by enabling, cost-effective sourcing of product, or optimizing that so people don't have to go all over the place. So I think in terms of messaging on a website, assuming that everybody knows that this is a marketplace and there are people selling and people buying, then it's probably like an overarching entry point which talks to the efficiencies of the marketplace type model, and then users go into different parts of the website, whether they're buying or whether they're selling. Does that answer what you?
Yeah, it does. So that basically we need to tune the messaging to these audiences.
Absolutely.
And yeah. It goes back to your initial statement that you need to know your audience, and of course their requirements as to where they're coming from. So the challenge to these entities is they have to double the effort because they have two types of audiences.
Yes.
And they have to kind of do twice the effort, getting in front of them.
Yes.
All right. Are there any other questions?
Sorry, just quickly, that when I started off saying on this in terms of the marketing mix and saying that this had to be redone for every market segment that you go after, this would absolutely apply, because the pricing model, the distribution, how you reach the people, the promotional mixes and the product, the look and feel, and how the operation works is going to probably be very different to a person who's selling than to a person who's buying.
Correct. Good. This is good. We are pretty much out of time. But is there anyone with any other question? We can take one more minute from Sue if it's an interesting question. Anyone else there, guys? Okay, good. All right. So, thanks for your time. I appreciate a lot. And we will take the liberty to reach out to you with one-off questions. We have, I have your email address, but the rest of the team, will also, if they need to take the liberty. I hope that is okay.
Yeah,
And,
sure.
thanks again.
My pleasure. I hope it helped. I'm more than happy to chat and engage with anybody after this. And I wish you all good luck. What you're doing is really, really exciting and cool. So go out there and change the world.
Hello.
Right. They are all cool companies.
Hello.
They are all cool companies.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi. Could you please share the this is Arsha here from Zest IoT team. Could you just share the collateral that you that the slide and the CB marketing overview that you had showed to us? If you could share it with all of us, it would be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sanjay, I will send that to you. Okay.
Sure. Yeah, I will share and I'll pass it on. Sure.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you so much. Sue.
Sorry, I was the line was breaking up a bit. Can you just repeat the question for me? Sure, I can do that. I will say I personally haven't got a lot of followers, but let me look into that and see, because I think it's a great idea. So let me look into that and see how we can most effectively do it. Okay.
Thank you, Sue, and we'll be in touch with you.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Susan. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye.